Two kids from Queens, cut from a different cloth. Now, joining forces, helping you to elevate your personal brand. Yeah, I'm talking about Nicky and Moose, bringing you a never-before-seen perspective into the mindset, the mentality, the behaviors, the driving force. But more importantly, the stories behind the people and brands that you know and love the most.
What's poppin', what's poppin', what's poppin'? This is Nicky. That's Moose. Hi, Moose.
What's up, yo?
And welcome to Nicky and Moose. Look. It has been definitely, since the last time we spoke to you, eventful. Definitely eventful. And we've been kind of like toying around with, should we talk about this? Should we not? What angle do we talk about this, right? Yeah, we're going to go in a different angle. Moose, how you feeling with all the current events?
Yeah, it took some time for sure to kind of like find, the space or the footing. And then I was like, you know what? Dude's been in the industry for over 30 years. We can highlight a lot of positives. And I love what we're doing because while it could have been easy to jump on the bandwagon and, of course, talk about the obvious, we're saying, no, let's really make sure he's remembered for the many great acts and not just a couple of laughs that we could have picked up, over a weekend or a popular trending hashtag.
Yep, even though the comments are already coming in. The comments are already coming in. But look, so we're not, let me give the disclaimer, we're not going to be the TMZ and the Shade Room and the Baller Alert of branding and business. We're not going to do that. But we are going to kind of build it up to where, you get the backstory and you really get to see the ups and downs of Will Smith. And of course, we will talk about it, but trust me, you'll love this angle. But let me get into this intro.
I am Libra, West Philadelphia, born and raised.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground is where I spent most of my days.
Boy, you know why you was an icon living? You was born from an icon living. Messed around, married me, an icon living. Tequila, then we made some icon children.
There's so many things I wanted to do.
This is one of my bucket list joints, right?
Trying to maintain being Will Smith was keeping me from being who I am and help build who I want to be.
This is living. This is living right here.
Will Smith. Will Smith, people. Will Smith. Moose, give him the stats. Give him the stats of Will Smith.
Oh, fire. So here goes, right? Actor, producer, rapper. First ever in the category to win a Grammy. All right. 5-time nominee for Golden Globe Awards, 2 Academy Awards, 4 Grammys. His movies, 24 movies that he's been in, have grossed close to $9 billion worldwide. Of course, he's a philanthropist and entrepreneur as well. He has a production company and several other endeavors.
Right.
But he comes in with a net worth of about $350 million.
Yikes. Look. So let's start it off right. Y'all know how we do this. What do you think Will Smith is, right? For those who are new, we go based off the flight assessment, right? We always look at who we're going to cover today. And we kind of break down their characteristics of their success and their failures. And what do they identify the most with? Pilot, flight attendant, grounds crew, or air traffic controller? In a minute and a half, Moose, can you give a quick rundown for the new and the seasoned folks of what each character does?
Absolutely. Well, first, let me start here. The flight assessment is a simple measurement of your dominant personality type, right? We think that there are a lot of different people in the world, but ultimately it breaks down to 4 different styles. The first one being the pilot, we think of this person as the one who likes to be in charge, right? They're flying the plane. They want to get it from where it is to its final destination. They love bringing about results and overcoming challenges. Once the pilot's in place, as you're walking to your seat, the first person you meet is usually the flight attendant. Happy, bubbly, friendly, smiling. They love interacting with people, right? Once you find your seat, you look out the window, you find those people in the orange and the green vest. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? They're getting bags on the plane, getting beverages and drinks up onto the plane for the flight attendants. They are the glue that keeps the operation running, but also a pivotal part of the experience. And lastly, before the plane takes off, you usually hear the pilot come through the intercom and say, air traffic control says we are next, or we're going to be delayed a couple minutes because of such and such traffic down the line. So usually the last piece, air traffic control, those folks are more systematic, right? They're very cautious in their approach. They like to make sure things are in order, and they really like to work with the fine details. So there you have it, folks. The flight assessment wrapping up with all 4 characters.
So get the voting, get it in the comments. What do you feel? What do you think? What do you know Will Smith is, right? So let's talk about where it all started. Moose, let's talk about that real quick.
Just to understand, absolutely. We made a bunch of money. We won a Grammy. Album was triple platinum. I had motorcycles and cars. I called the Gucci store in Atlanta, and I was like, "Hey, will y'all close it down if I bring my friends?"
I spent all my money.
And I didn't forget, but I didn't pay the IRS. So I was like laying around, and my girlfriend was like,
"Dude, we're not doing this. Like, you're not just gonna be laying around this house all day. You're gonna go do something.
Where are people doing it?
Go to the Arsenio Hall show.
Just go stand around at the Arsenio Hall show." So I went to the Arsenio Hall show, and I met a dude named Benny Medina. And Benny Medina is the real life Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
So, started off rapping, right? Got with DJ Jazzy Jeff, right? And let's talk about that real quick. Those two combined, right? Because I feel as if Will brought a certain kind of energy. However, DJ Jazzy Jeff had the system. I feel like there was this interview that I was watching, and he was saying like, yo, you know, I would come up with the ideas or whatever, and I'll do whatever I wanted to do. But then Jazz was just like, okay, no, we got to structure it this way. We got to do it this way. We got to come before the chorus. And taught him how to really create a song, right? And an album where he was just like, yo, I rap. This is what I do. I think that was key in the very beginning of his career, of having a person like Jazz so early on, right? What do you think?
Yeah, major key, because if you think about it, so he talks about how Jazz, his parents and himself kind of raised him from a jazz background, hence his name, right? So he understood the breakdown of music, right? How to overlay what he called tracks and things of that nature. Now, off the cuff, Will was all about happy-go-lucky, let's have a good time. He kind of says, like, I just wanted to go to the parties and meet females pretty much, right? That was his whole thing.
Right.
And then Jazz was the first one to say, no, we need to stop just creating for the parties, and we need to start creating albums and singles, right? Actually creating music.
Yep.
Next thing you know, they have a #1 track before they even graduate high school. So without that opportunity, right, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he doesn't really have that much kind of momentum behind him to get that opportunity, which I think many of us, at least those 90s kids, really remember Will for.
Right. Let's talk about Will Smith's work ethic, right? Because before we talked about where it all started, how he was very successful, then got broke, and then ended up in front of Arsenio Hall, like, do, hello, put me on your show, and landed Fresh Prince, right? But after Fresh Prince, he had an amazing movie career. Amazing movie career. Countless of awards and everything like that. But I want to get really into how his mind thinks real quick as far as how he works. So let's go into that real quick.
Gifted with a talent and you have it. But skill is acquired through discipline. And, I've never seen myself as particularly talented. Where I excel is I'm willing to die in the process of acquiring skill. Like, it's, when I put my obsessive mind on
Just die on the
something,
treadmill.
I'm just dying. Yeah, right, exactly.
So, it's crazy because, and we were talking offline about this, where you see one side of Will as far as the funny bars, jokes, all that great stuff. And then to hear kind of just being obsessed with his work, right? And completely like 24/7 into it, right? And we have another clip to show that, but 24/7 into it and totally mastering his craft, right? I think that's out of this, because I feel like it's like two different things to an extent.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. No, for sure. It has you start thinking in a way like, wait, does anybody or everybody who wants to be on that level has to start thinking about that public persona and that private persona, right? And for those familiar with the flight assessment, you can kind of think like natural and adaptive. I can see that in a way, but it's also very strategically modified, right? Like it's brought together in a very strategic way. So when he talks about this concept of, going from talent to skill, him entering Hollywood and starting his movie career was really the first time that he talks about where he stopped relying on just natural talent and he started going all in on skill, which is pretty interesting. But this would, when you think about today's era, it's less about, and he mentioned this in one of the interviews, where back in the day, for you to be successful, you had to be on hideout, right? Like you only showing up for big occasions and people are like starstruck, like, oh my God, it's Will Smith. But in today's era, especially with just how branding is going, it's more about establishing relationship with your tribe, and this is something that you're big on. Do you think that today that like same model would work in today's, economy or today's kind of online market?
As far as what do you mean? Like being kind of away from
two sides. Yeah. Like being one way in public, one way in private. But I'm saying because today's, marketing and just online, everything is supposed to be one of the same. People want to feel like, nah, he's the same person, when I met him and he's the same way at home. Like, that's so cool.
Right. I think people respect when it's one of the same, but I think it's still very alive where you have two different personalities, one that's real life and then one that's virtual life, right? You see that, and we saw it with Beyonce early on, right? You see it with these entertainers as far as they have one side of, I gotta always show face, right? I always got to have a certain kind of facade about me because that's what the public knows about me, right? I think as far as when you get down the line with maturity and when you get down the line with how good your career is, you can act a little bit more as far as you and show your true authentic self, which we'll talk about later. But I think it still is very apparent nowadays of two sides. It just gets super respected when you do just one of the same.
No, facts.
So, but
Facts.
hey, that's what I need. I need a fax button, but I'll just do
Another one.
so. But I do want to. It's funny because we talk about the work ethic and we see how obsessed he is, but I struggled with this topic real quick
Yeah.
because what we think of Will as far as this great movie actor and everything like that, to find out that it wasn't natural to him, that he really acquired this acting skill, right? And that kind of like, so were you fake this whole time? Like, it's not fake, but I would say like, we normally tell people to be in their natural, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started really thinking about it, I really thought about as far as like, he naturally does have a gift of talking to people, of jokes, of personality, right? I think when it get to the serious roles and the level that he wanted to be in, right, he had to learn that. So, though I think the acting part was more of an acquired skill than natural, I do feel that there's certain parts that was natural. I felt like he did draw from it to create the relationships in the acting world, to put a certain kind of swag to the role on certain roles, right? Like, I don't think he could have put his own real swag to like Ali, because you really had to embody certain roles like that. So I think that's where the acquired skill came in, because he knew there's certain roles that I could be me in, Bad Boys, right? But then there's certain roles that I have to fully embody that person, and that doesn't necessarily come natural to me. And if I want to be the best in that, I have to learn that. What do you think about that one?
Yeah. So the interesting part on this one, I think it has a lot to do with the environment, right? So as a natural creative, I feel that when he first started in the music industry, he was vibing straight off of energy, right? And just the dynamic of the music world, it was the MC and the DJ, and you vibe together and you work off of energy. And I think it's very similar to what we saw with Jamie Foxx when he had to go from doing auditions as a stand-up to now going for big screen on movies, and they were like, yo, that energy is different. Like, you have to kind of tone it down. So I wouldn't say I would strip him of credit because it's not his natural self. I would say, though, that the lesson really here is that when it comes to what you are providing or your natural skill set, you have to understand that it has to be in alignment with the environment that you're in, right? Because if you produce more energy per se than what the environment needs, then it's not a perfect fit. So I think what we saw with him is it was adjust the energy, and it was like, whoa, no, this is too much energy for big screen. And while I may have roles that will hit with that, I also need to know how to fill this place, because this is a big career here.
Lower your tone.
Sheesh. I agree. So let's talk into when he gets out of character real quick. And follow me, people, what I mean by this.
You know how I make movies.
I do.
It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Until it's finished.
Yep.
And what I decided on After Earth was I'm not going to have a single moment where I push him or pound on him. I was going to be a loving father. And then the movie didn't work.
Right.
And I was like, that's what happens when you give a damn how people feel. You can't win.
That's a different Will. That's a different Will.
Right. Because, I mean, I think a lot of people, I think it's safe to say that people could look at him as the flight attendant. People could look at him as, the life of the party and everything. But then to hear, like, yo, I'm 24/7 7 days a week in the movie. And the fact that because of my kid, I actually had to care. Like, and the second that I cared, it didn't work. So now my facts of I have to embody this role and I have to go all in on this movie or it wouldn't work. I was right. So I'm never going to do this again, right? But let's try it. Like, let's try it for the sake of my kid is crazy. I think, I don't, I heard that and I was like, oh, wow, yikes.
Yeah, but I think it also was a backstory to his parenting, kind of like the relationship with his children and also the relationship with his own father.
Right.
All right, so like when we look at just like Will Smith's, how he was kind of groomed and brought up together, his father had a big role to play in how he was. And he even goes to the extent to say that he didn't fully become himself, unfortunately, until his father passed away. So it shows like even as an adult, you know, there are parts of you that you can't fully embody because you're paying respect to, you know, your own father. So it seemed that in this position, he had that run-in with Willow, right? And for people not familiar with it, she's on a tour on a song called Whip My Hair, and then she decides to shave her head bald, and it kind of kills the song.
Right.
Right. So then he kind of started being more mindful of like this balance concept. But I don't know, Nikki, do you have to be on one side of the extreme to win? Or is there such a thing as work-life balance?
I think it depends. You're asking the wrong one. You're asking the wrong one. So I think it depends on what level of greatness you want to be on. So if you are in a role of dominating where you're at, there's not people who are in that level and the mindset don't know how to truly balance it. Like, I'm either going to dominate in being a great husband, wife, father, mother, and I'm going to dominate in that, or I'm going to dominate in my career. I feel when you have certain traits, right? I can only speak for like a pilot, right? I can only speak for a kind of a dominant person of like, it has to be either or. Like, I think we struggle with that life work balance unless we slot it to like, boom, here is the cutoff, right? Now, when I'm listening to some of the greats, whether it's within acting, whether it's within sports, like their cutoff is literally like this time that I'm doing it, whether I'm on the court, whether I'm doing a movie, whether I'm doing a show, like you have to understand this is me time. This is the career time. The second that it's done, you get all of me. Now, is that fair? I don't know. It works for some. It doesn't work for others, right? Some people are like, no, find me time during your career time, right? And I think there's seasons for everything. I'm big on that. Like, I really think there's seasons of, you know, that we got to grind this out. So, boom, let me concentrate here. And then you got all my attention here, right? And so when he combined it, like he was explaining with that movie, in his eyes, it bombed. He probably strengthened his relationship with his son. So that was a win over there. But career-wise, it bombed. It could have been that it was a bad movie. I don't know. I didn't watch it. So I couldn't tell you, right? But the fact that it didn't work, and that's all he's basing it off of, you know, we kind of look at it as like, I had a formula. I've been winning this whole time. So I don't have to... I don't have to do both. Like, it's either one or the other. Like, if you come into my world, this is how it's going to be. And I'm going to be on your head. I can't do the, oh, okay, I love you and blah, blah, blah. Like, something's going to suffer. Something is going to be sacrificed. But that's how I think. How do you feel about that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance, and to be honest, for someone like myself, I don't know how to multitask, and I've just kind of started to embrace that. Like, dude, stop trying. Like, stop trying to do both things at once. Just focus on one, because you end up having to do both things over anyway.
Right.
So and for some people it works, right? Like, some people need a lot. Like, I look at, for example, like a Floyd Mayweather.
Yep.
I can't imagine Mayweather focused and thriving. He needed that whole ambiance around him to feed off of that energy.
Yep.
So it kind of seemed that Will was similar to that, because he was so dedicated and serious about the craft. Like, he walked into it like, you know what? Maybe that going broke at 18 or 19 really taught him, like, I cannot go back there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of how you can use something from the past to make it work. But as we move on, you know, there becomes an interesting question. It's like this character versus authenticity thing, right? Like Will Smith, the character.
Oh, we'll get into that. We ain't there yet. Okay. Keep going there yet.
Let me chill.
Yeah, we ain't there yet. But I wanted to talk first about maybe why do you think he picked movies over music? So I found this clip and I wanted to not necessarily debate before everybody is like, oh, here we go. It's not definitely a debate, but I want to have a conversation, because I feel as if he saw an opportunity and he took it. So let me just play it.
Right. When I look at people and I see things, I don't feel like I can't. Whether or not I will is something different, but I don't ever feel like I can't. Denzel was the only person that I looked at on screen. I was like, I just can't do that. I could never live up to that. But for the most part, when I look at people, when I look at things, I always feel like I can. When I look at Jay right now, I see I can't do that. I looked at Eminem, I was like, I can't do that. You know, this is like. But for the most part, I don't live in a space of I can't.
So, looking at that, and would love to get the audience take on this one, but looking at that, I feel as if he was in music, right? And he saw who was coming up in the times that he had. Clearly not in the very beginning, right? But I feel like he even knew in the beginning, once that album flopped, right, that there's a cap to how he structures and how he does music, right? As far as in the rap industry, because rap back then was cursing, drugs, money, all this stuff, right? And he wasn't speaking on that. So as he saw, like, it was a 2-to-1 kind of vibe. I can't be a J, I can't be an M, I can't be of that status, but the only person I feel like I can't beat in the movies is Denzel. What he does is too much. I can't do that. So if I am going to pick a field where I can dominate so I'm not broke again, I'm going to pick movies, and I'm going to do everything that I can to learn that, because the competition is less over here than necessarily in the rapper status. So that's why I think he picked movies over music, because I don't think anybody, as far as a true hip hop fan, puts Will Smith in the top 10.
Mm-mm.
I'm just saying. I don't.
Yeah. No, I definitely would say he did get a lot of heat, right? He was made fun of quite a bit from a music standpoint. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I don't know if he was, necessarily comparing, mm-hmm. but what we've come to learn about him is that he's a numbers guy.
Right.
And he's so dedicated to this concept of numbers that he got to a point where he was like, I'd rather chase numbers than awards. Mm-hmm. And if people aren't going to appreciate my talent here, then let me swing on the other side where I probably will be respected and leverage what I've built from the Fresh Prince. Mm-hmm. Now, the other part of it, and this is something that I kind of have strike the conversation again about, is this concept of the inability or the ability to self-assess, right? Because when you look at what that means, it's really the disconnect or the differentiation between how you think you are and how the world receives you. So in Will's mind, he's a phenomenal rapper. The reality of it for the industry, people weren't receiving him in that light. They were just nah, player, I don't know if you all that sweet. Right? And then he starts to gain that awareness, which we can call the ability to accurately self-assess, where he positions himself and thinks, all right, what do I need to do so that there is almost this congruency, there's an equal between how I see myself and how people are actually receptive to me now. I'm funny. I can use charm. I can rely on skill, like he said, or work ethic to come up with the parts that might be missing for a role and really compete and dominate. While that may not be fully my authentic self, that's the character I have to embrace, it meets my goal from the number standpoint. And I think that's what he activated and took off with.
Either or. Either or. You have a good... I can't even debate on that. I don't want to debate on it. I just... That was good. That was, yeah, I'm just going...
Good. That was good. That was good.
Yeah, that was good. I wasn't even expecting that. Okay, now let's get into your authentic part. Because you got happy. You were like, all right, listen, he wasn't authentic. I was like, wait, I wanted to go about this. Hold on. Introduce that.
Yeah, so... I think as he continued on this journey of making movies, like when we say Will Smith killed the movie game, like he seriously killed the movie game. He's probably the top grossing actor. Like he got the biggest payday in Men in Black 3 because he took performance-based pay as opposed to just a flat fee, how most actors would get paid up front. He made almost $100 million in that movie alone, right? That's one. Yeah. So definitely, when you talk about intention, strategy, performing at a high level, he got to a part that I think he almost began to lose sight of who he was in a sense. Right. It had to become too maybe systematic in a sense. So let's check out this video here where he talks about what he had to do to find himself again.
The idea, I haven't maintained my authenticity per se. I've maintained my character. But in terms of authenticity, the character, Will Smith, signs every autograph and is always happy and wants to see the fans and is always in a good mood. And that's actually not authentic, right? I do want to slap somebody, you know.
Yeah, he said, I do want to slap somebody, you know.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
I'm just... So this is where I struggle with that, because like I said earlier, like he was one way for the movies. He was one way for, I think, a good amount of years that we've known him, right? Not there's a few of us that remembers his rapping days early, right? Majority of, like, even my life, he's been in the movies, right? He did get jiggy with it, but no one took him serious. Like, at least I didn't take it serious. But he's been in the movies. And so for you to say, yo, in one way, I was not authentic. I had to play this role. I got so, what I feel is that I got so embodied in being a character, I became a character, And so when you think of it like that, like, how do you pick out what's right and wrong with Will Smith if for a good amount of his time, he admits that he wasn't authentic, right? And that's what I was struggling with when it came to this episode of like, yo, you gonna sit here and legitimately say that you weren't your true self this whole time, but you've became, and this is where it comes contradicting to what we say, is like, yo, you became really famous. You made a lot of money and you weren't authentic. So, you know, in that interview, and for those people who don't know where that interview came from, is Rap Radar. Really great. I couldn't pull from anything else, for one, because when you put Will Smith interview, it's very oversaturated with what's happening in the current events right now, which we'll get into. But this one, I think, hit all different angles of, from everything from the beginning of his career to this point, right? And so I struggle because, like, to be successful in his eyes, in his path, there was a point where you couldn't be authentic. Now, my only thing with that is like, yo, were you happy then? Like, now I have to question that, because yes, you were successful. Yes, we thought you were the number one actor. You had the best roles and won all these awards, but you weren't yourself. And for me, I'm like, yo, I wouldn't want that. Like, like success and money doesn't equal up anything if I can't be who I am. And I have to play this like, oh yeah, I like people and blah, 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 and let me sign everything and let me smile all the time and crack jokes when maybe I don't necessarily want to crack jokes. And okay, here's a random question. Do you feel at a certain point that comedians have to play a certain kind of role because they're always deemed as, you have to turn on all the time. Like, you have to play this role. You have to be funny at any moment. You have to shake hands, kiss babies all the time. Like, do you feel as if maybe they started off like that, but after a while, the environment and the status changed them to be like, yo, this ain't even really my life right now. This is like, let me be in a hole, please.
Yeah. I really think it's, you can look at it from two sides. You can look at it and say, man, that's fake. He became something he's not, and he admits it. Wow, that's crazy. But you can also look at it like, and we can go down the path of the whole responsibility thing.
Right.
And I would even to say that more than responsibility, it's great branding. You've done a good job of portraying who you are to the mass media, to the wide public, that they have been seriously convinced that this is who you are. And I think it made it easier for us to believe that this is who Will Smith was, because he had roles that had him as the main character, the protagonist, the hero, the one that's going to kill, these crazy, weird monsters. So he really portrayed that character. And then he was that same way in interviews, on the red carpet, with the fans or with his people. So it made it easy to believe that, you know what? Yeah, I actually like this Will Smith. So he kind of kept a consistent energy with some of the comedy and just the that lightheartedness that made people love him for who he is. But yeah, it's an expensive price to pay. But what I love about him is that he didn't look up and say, dang, I'm about to be 50. It's too late now. He still reinvented himself at 50.
Yeah, I agree with that. But but for how long? That's my whole thing. Like, what we know of Will Smith is like, was it real? Like, now, I mean, we look at him, and I'll get into that clip in a bit, where he just looks like he is loving life, right? Because of the day and age that we're in, right? But before that, like, I struggle.
It's different. Yeah. I was going to say it's different seasons, I think. And you kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier, right? Like, it depends on the season. And I think he may have just kind of got to that season of like, maybe he was tired. Like, I'm burnt out. And I just made $100 million on Men in Black 3, so I don't got to do much. Right?
Yeah, listen, I guess. But there was a shift, right? there was a shift, and this is where we'll get into the current events. But there was a shift that made him feel as if he could be his true, authentic self. So let me get into that.
I think one of the major, one of the beautiful parts of social media that I think is a beautiful evolutionary thing is that social media demands authenticity, right? So social media pushes you more and more into having to reveal what's true.
Yeah, who you
and because
really
if
are.
you don't, you know, TMZ is going to, right?
So, we can't sit and deny that Will Smith is one of the top social media influencers since the second that he jumped on social media. Once he embodied that, he felt like he can be his true self, right? He created more. He was on it through motivational speeches to just creating funny stuff to collaborating with great people. Even to the point where the Joyner Lucas situation, where he did a whole remix, you know, because he saw it on social media. So he's like, yo, let me create with you. And what I love about that is because it really goes based off what we've always said of like using your platform to be authentic. Like not letting the platform transform you, but you transforming the platform, right? And each platform that he touches, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whatever, TikTok, he creates in his true authentic self, which is free, which is creative, which is funny, which is just lively, right? And he lets you see his family in the views that he wants you to see his family. He lets you see his thought process and how he creates during quarantine and all that great stuff. The conversations that he's having with Black Lives Matter is just very freeing that gives permission for people to be like, yo, this is your platform. You could do what you want to do, because if not, like you said, TMZ is going to create your narrative. So you might as well use your own platform to do what you want to do. Moose, like, what is your take on Will Smith as far as the second that he jumped on social media?
Yeah, I loved it. You know, I loved it. And I definitely think that as a huge Will Smith fan, it was the greatest thing ever, right? Because he had never joined anything social media whatsoever up until a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And once he came on, there was no real like acclimation period. It's like he jumped in full force and really gave you an inside look of who he was. But you know what? As you talk about gaining momentum or being able to control your own narrative, I love what he did because it's something you preach all the time. He was consistent from day one. Consistent from day one, and all throughout, you know what you're going to get from him, right? He's been relatively consistent in even what he delivers and the quality in which he delivers in, so it made it even easier to embrace him. So I love what he created through that concept, and even more so, he talks about how that became his creative expression to go back to that, what I felt was a young energy Will, as opposed to that super strategic, even robotic Will that had to be so programmed for every movie and every role. It's like, no, this is not an idea that can last a movie, but we can make a quick skit on it. Let's roll with that. Created a production company and an entire team that was able to carry his vision. And we saw, you know, maybe you can introduce that a little bit later, but we saw how he ended up even leveraging that with the entire Red Table Talk and everything that took place there.
Oh yeah, but before we get into the Red Table Talk and everything like that, let's do some voting. Let's do some voting. Let's do it before we get into the real deal. What do people think my man is? Flight attendant? Oh, pilot. I totally skipped the pilot. That's crazy. Pilot, flight attendant, grounds crew, or air traffic controller. What do we feel that he is? Start voting based off what you've heard. I saw a lot of people say flight attendant. I saw some ATCs. I saw some pilots and whatever. So let's. I vote Will Smith is a. Okay, all right, Isaiah. I there he goes. He said I vote Will Smith is a liar. Okay, sheesh. So all right, Moose.
This is tough. Seriously, this one's gonna be tough. Ground School gotta go.
Wait, the one that you didn't want to go first the last time? Aww. Oh, wait, I got the wrong one. That was me. Hold on, what? There we go. I had the wrong one. All right. Why Grounds Crew?
I see, and of course, I think the more you study somebody's career, Will came out in 1985. And I don't mean to put his business out there, but gosh, that seemed like forever, right? So he's talking about like a 35-year career. So the more you see that and you get to see somebody mature through so many different stages, the more difficult it becomes to predict the style that he was most dominant in. But I don't see any of what he said almost at any stage in the game of him being Grounds Crew-ish, right? Where he kind of had any of those behaviors, right? Of wanting to be accepted or cared deeply for, following that maybe path that was set before him. And a lot of the things that he did was totally outlandish. Like his father was a complete disciplinarian, blue collar worker. So was his mother. He went out to be an MC, or a rapper as early as high school. So it's like total outcast. So that's why I wouldn't say so much Grounds Crew.
All right. So I'm not even going to like what's next because I think this is the hard part, right?
This is the hard part.
And shout out to people who are saying flight attendant, pilot, flight attendant, air traffic controller. I think so. For me, I'm going to say clearly there's seasons, right? And I think there was a season. Naturally, I'm going to say flight attendant all day. Naturally, I think there was a season where he hit into his adaptive mode, and I think his adaptive mode hit a pilot and an air traffic controller in his adaptive. Right, the flight attendant was there still, clearly, but I think there was a back and forth with those two because I feel like there was some strategic moves that he did. I feel like the crazy work ethic does go for both air traffic controller and pilot. Right, I'm not going to just favor the pilot and say we only have the greatest work ethic. I clearly through these studies have learned that both have that kind of ability to have that kind of work ethic. So I think when it came to the movie roles, I feel as if he played two. I think now he's in his flight attendant, but I do feel as if he has air traffic controller. Now in his 50s with the social media world and how everything is going, because I think he's strategically picking when he shows up, strategically picking when it's time to be on social media, when it's not, when to say something, when it's not. And I think he's also having that say when his family does things as well. So I struggle altogether because I feel like clearly flight attendant, but like there are seasons of when he is, the pilot and the air traffic controller. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree 100%. So let me kind of make sure I'm getting this right. So you're saying natural dominance, flight attendant or pilot? Like just natural.
Natural is flight attendant. Natural is flight attendant. I think like I said, the season is where the pilot may be a little bit more up in the adaptive, or the air traffic controller could be a little bit more up in the adaptive, but natural, hands down, is always going to be flight attendant.
Yeah, I agree. I think too much extroverted energy, although again we can debate with some of like how real that was because of what he displayed about his authenticity with those characters. But there's so much extroverted energy, even with the competitiveness of, him saying that I want to be dedicated to making movies 24/7 when I'm in, right?
Yeah.
You can still see that. But what really broke it for me, and this is why I'm agreeing with you more, leaning towards the pilot, is when he talks about he left music and went to movies because he preferred box office numbers over awards or nominations.
Yep.
He's like, I'm a numbers guy. Let me go out and get, the most sales. And I was like, I think that's more leaning towards that pilot.
You're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
No, bring that back, because I think some people don't understand why that's important. Like, when he said that, I don't think certain people understood why that was a key factor for us. So break that down, why him being more involved with the box office numbers and stats than anything else would make you shift what you think.
Yeah, because when you look at the pilot's characteristics, off the bat, we're quick to say that they're bottom line driven, right? They care about the bottom line numbers. But the main difference when you kind of review your own assessment, you can also say, well, wait, air traffic controls are also number driven. They care for data, but so the drive is different. Data helps the air traffic control feel more comfortable as it relates to accuracy. The pilot is looking more at sales as it relates directly to results, right? So for us, seeing those two metrics was like, yep, that's a definite pilot move, in my opinion, again, above the favoring that air traffic control side. And even it almost brings his flight attendant a little bit down, because when you think of some flight attendants, they care for the credit, right? Like for you giving them like, hey, good job on that. Yeah. To them, that's what I would consider a nomination or an award. But there's a clip in one of the interviews where he's like, I don't even know where my first Grammy is. And it's like, dang, right? He just shoved that thing somewhere else. Like, nope, let me go chase these box office numbers.
So we're leaving all three of them up because we just gave the argument of why. So
yeah, you can see it anywhere.
Yeah, you can see it. So let me do the
stretch your legs.
Yeah. Let me let that rock. Let me let that rock. So, for those who have been sitting and waiting to see what we were going to talk about, this Red Table Talk, yes, we are. So, please share, because this is where this is going to get good. If you saw my IG Live, you already know how passionate I feel about this. So, we are going to talk about it in a more intellectual way. We're not going to talk about it in a shade room way or a TMZ way, but share this, because yes, we are going to be talking about this situation here, all right? And we're going to talk about it as a transition of that last clip that we said, where, how social media brings out the authenticity and allows him to say and create before somebody else does, right? And so, quick background, for those who don't know, right? A R&B singer named August Alsina, right? Put out some information I felt like he shouldn't have, as far as the questioning of Jada Pickett-Smith's relationship between Will Smith and himself, right? Now, where I love about what the Smiths did, as they said in that last clip, is that they created their own narrative. They put it on their own platform that they have been building for a very, very long time, right? So when August came out with that situation and everybody was saying what they want because the internet is undefeated, and so there was a lot of memes, there was a lot of jokes, there was a lot of things that was going on, right? And so they stayed quiet for a few, but what did they do? They got their media team, they got their platform, and they sat down and did record-breaking numbers to talk about their life, to talk about conversations that they probably have behind the scenes, right? And so when you think about that, like the fact that regardless of what Will Smith was before, like saying, yo, I wasn't authentic, I totally appreciate him embodying social media because it got him and his wife in front of this situation where many celebrities would actually fall into the results of a TMZ and a shade room and have to kind of just backpedal and defend themselves more than completely controlling what people see of their life. Like the question of open marriage and doing whatever you want and the cheating and everything like that, that was up in the air. And they said, look, we broke up. We were separated. I almost didn't get back with you. Like they told the story in their own way, right? What we don't know clearly, because, you know, we don't know if it's true or false, but what we do know is how many numbers it did. And in the first day, it did 12 million views, to where the other person's interview got about like maybe 2 or 4 million views within that whole week, right? So to show the power of social media, to show how Will has totally embodied it, not only for himself, but for his family, right? And having fun with it and being transparent about it. Like before then, he did that Father's Day thing that we showed a clip of, where both of them was crying and boo-hooing and everything like that. I think him really embodying that flight attendant, and in this case, showing the transparency, you know, showing the emotion, showing where things went wrong and how to get in front of it, I think that's genius. And of course, they have a deal with Facebook Watch. So of course it brought some money. So now you're thinking of, in a business sense, okay, I could be transparent all I want to because I'm going to bring in this amount of money, especially since it's breaking records, right? So, I mean, Moose, what do you have to say about that? Because I'm just like, he's genius. Like, that whole family is genius.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? When, you know, even from my personal experience in doing some work with the media, you can sometimes say what really happened. But when you don't control the production, they can spin it however which way. And then you're watching it like, whoa, I did not intend for it to be that way.
Right.
Or they cut out what I said as a response to that question, and they put a voiceover and narrated their own thing. So for me, like legit, I was like, this is crazy, right? But at that point, it's too late. It already aired. So I think when you look at what he's doing, number one, he has his own production company, filming, editing, and preparing. From one side of it, and I don't want to go there right away, but just look at it from a business standpoint, he's likely charging Facebook for that work. Right? So he's like, Facebook, go ahead and sign this check right here because this is work that we are doing for you. Aside from the fact that it's our own show, that's number one. And then number two, right? Number two, he's really delivering the information the way he wants to. And that's the beauty of it. Whether all of it is truth or not, he has complete control of what goes out to the public. So I second that, Nicky, in terms of just genius across the board. Yeah, big time, big time.
Now, and it's crazy because like if you really think and this is where it's really important to control that narrative on your platform, because if you really think about the jokes that are going on in the memes, like the only thing they got on the whole situation is the word entanglement.
Right. Right.
Right?
That's true.
Where when August said it, they had so many different types of posts of what it could be, what it couldn't be, digging up different pictures and everything like that, because August and Angela Yee controlled that narrative at that time, right? So allowing other people to control what's happening over here, they could create however many memes. Like I said, the internet has been undefeated, I believe, since the whole Drake and Meek situation. But that's a whole different story. But when they said it and how they showed it is one thing, right? But when Jada and Will said everything they needed to say, they were so like bulletproof that, yeah, make fun of the word. You know what? They even laughed at it at the time that they said it, right? So now there's remixes and songs and umpteen many memes and shirts are being made and everything like that. It's become a movement. But if you can only find one thing wrong out of a interview about somebody being transparent about their life, whether you think that that person was cheating at the time or not, open relationship or not, whatever it is, if you could only find one thing, I think that's complete branding. I believe that's complete genius. I believe that's complete control of what they put out. Whereas if they could have went to an Oprah, because why? Because they've done that before. They could have even called probably Obama. Like, hello, we interviewed you before, come through, interview us.
Pull up.
They could have gotten a beyond, like they just have that much pull that people wanted that information, right? But what we've seen in the past is how they cut, like you said, how they cut interviews. Even like horrible example, and don't kill me, people, but like when they interviewed R. Kelly, right? And how they cut that up. And I'm not defending my man, but there's certain cuts that we know were done for the greater of man. Let's just put it that way. It would to totally defend what we think of R. Kelly, right? So they said, nah, there's no cutting. We're going to put it out the way we want to put it out. We're going to have it angled the way we want it angled. And that is that. I'm not going to let any other production team, I'm not going to let no Oprah, no Obama, no nothing ask me the questions. Me, Will's going to ask you certain things. You're going to say whatever you want. I'm going to direct it a little bit because you're clearly missing that you're saying that you were in a relationship, right? Let you be, but then I'm going to go back and let you say your story. And that's the end of it. There wasn't really a comeback. You can't really come back when you have such a strong brand like that, when you have such a platform of that status, you can't come back. It won't equal up to what they just did.
Yeah. And
so this is where I totally champion being authentic and building a brand based off the authenticity and the transparency, because you're looking at it like you can't beat that. What are you going and you've been consistent with the authenticity and the transparency. You've been consistent. So where the other people have been in and out, you can't, when those two speak, we already know they've created a platform that allows people to be transparent. So if they want to be the ones that's transparent this time, people think it's a safe zone. People think that that's the place to go to for transparency talk, for that, you know, that reveal of what's really happening behind the scenes, because there's no other platform at this moment that is doing it the way they are.
Yeah.
I think it's genius.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really to add to that, I think from a business standpoint, of course, a branding standpoint, because they've held themselves accountable to the same values, right, that they preach, like Jada preaches it every single week or anytime an episode of hers airs, she's talking about this concept of healing, right? Come to the table for healing.
Yep.
So imagine if she flaunted on that value, one of those core values as we think of businesses, those core values that they truly believe and live by, and she kind of just did like tried going around it or avoiding it or didn't have the conversation at all.
Yep.
So to your point, I think the fact that they held themselves accountable to the same values that they want to deliver to the marketplace or to the world, other people are now going to say, you know what? If and when it's time for me to come and clear the air, I'm going to go to the table and do it with them the same way they did it.
Yep.
So when you think about genius from a future revenue standpoint, that of course is going to bring all the attention back to their platform, and they're showing, hey, I'm going to do right by you. It's what guys like LeBron and even Derek Jeter wanted to do when they said we as athletes need to get involved in the media so we can control our own narrative. So now she's winning the trust of the entertainment industry per se, not so much for athletes, but for entertainers, and saying, hey, come to our platform. We will make sure your narrative goes out there the way it deserves to be. You can finalize it as needed. So yeah, I think from a future revenue standpoint, that's going to be fire as well. And it all comes off of staying true to the core values and holding yourself accountable to those same standards.
Yep.